So hello again.
Hello again.
Thank you for doing this. I'm just going to start out by giving a quick introduction of you for those that are watching, in case they don't know your full background. So all those who aren't aware, Andy Cunningham came to Silicon Valley in 1983 to work for Regis McKenna and help Steve Jobs launch the Macintosh. When Steve left Apple to form Next and acquire Pixar, he chose Andy's public relations agency at the time, which was Cunningham Communication, to represent him. She continued to work with Steve for several years and has developed marketing, branding, and communication strategies for game-changing technologies and companies ever since. Andy wrote her first book in 2017. It's called Get to Aha, Discover Your Positioning DNA and Dominate Your Competition. Reed Hastings, co-founder and CEO of Netflix, said of Andy and her book that disruptive products require disruptive positioning, and there's no one better equipped to explain how to do it than Andy Cunningham and Get to Aha. So welcome, Andy Cunningham.
Thank you very much, Aaron. Good to be here.
I am so excited for this interview. I have prepared some questions for you, and I'll dive in if you're ready.
Absolutely, shoot.
Excellent. So it takes a lot of effort to document a framework as you did. You have a storied history, in our field. You finally, in 2017, documented that framework, but it takes a lot of effort to do that, to author and promote a book. Can you tell me what compelled you to persevere and get this out there?
So, well, thank you. That's a great question. I should start with why I even wrote it in the first place. So what happened to me probably about 20 years ago now is I used to do marketing like everyone else does, right? Do these positioning things kind of like everybody does. Well, branding agencies do this all the time. You interview a few people, a few customers, then you lock yourself in a dark room, you light a candle, you do a little chant, and then you come out with some incredibly creative tagline or a incredibly creative campaign idea. And then you sell it to the client based on your ability to present it and the glitziness of it, right? The sexiness of the idea. That's how I used to do it. I went to a client once about 20 years ago. They were actually competing with Adobe, and the CEO was a new guy, came in from a finance background, didn't know anything about marketing or software, and he basically asked me the question, "How do you come up with the answer? How do you come up with the positions?" And I had to respond, "I don't actually know. I don't know how I do that." And he said, "Well, this is a lot of money you're asking me to pay to do this. I would kind of like to have an idea of what it is you're going to do." So I actually did go home and lock myself in a dark room for 3 days, but I reverse engineered what I do when I'm doing this. And when the book idea came out, it was like, oh my God, there is a process here. There's a real framework here. It's not just some creative exercise. So I came up with the framework 20 years ago. I've been honing it ever since, decided I really needed to get this out there because it was super helpful for all of our clients. I've never had this process fail, not once. So I just decided, got to make a book out of it. So
I'm a consultant and I have used it 3 times with companies so far to great success. So I'm also proof positive, as I'm sure thousands of others out there. So thank you for that. And the one little tip to all those other marketers that want to use the book, I always have my clients, there's a video from Canterbury Tech Conference in New Zealand.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
That's my favorite. It's 30 minutes and it's very concise. And she summarizes the book. And I have found that gets them ready for our conversations.
Oh, that's great. Well, thank you. I'll keep that in mind. I remember speaking there, but I hadn't used or seen that thing since then. So thanks.
Can you tell me, just to further that the discussion, in writing the book, in promoting it and coming out and supporting other marketers and tech companies, what have you learned from this whole process? Anything you've learned along the way?
Oh my gosh, yeah, like a bazillion things. I guess like from a very tactical level, people need human examples in order to understand difficult concepts. That's obvious, but we always forget that. So that's probably one of the biggest things I've learned, which I tried to embed into that book. And let's see, another thing that I've learned probably is people need frameworks to do stuff, right? Everything in marketing shouldn't be a creative exercise. There should be a process that you go through. And I really believe marketers are heroes. So they're my peaks, right?
Yeah.
Marketers are heroes, and it's a tough job out there, when people want you to make them famous, really is what everybody wants. And you need some tools to do that with. So that's why I did it, because I really want to help the people who I consider to be businesses' unsung heroes.
Yeah, help me understand, what have been then some of the most gratifying aspects of teaching this framework to the world?
The gratifying aspect to me is at the end of it, people kind of have a reaction like you. It's like, aha, I know the steps to do now. I know it. I don't have to just make it up, right? I think a lot of branding, if you will, is about making stuff up. And it's we're living in a data-driven culture right now, and the more evidence you can have for making a certain decision, the better off we all are. So that was at the core of it.
If you were going to write this book again, is there anything you would update or change about it now in hindsight?
Yes, and there's a couple of so I actually am writing a second book now. It's called Activating AHA. So it's once you have this great idea, how do you actually bring it to life? But there's a couple of things that I've included in my methodology since the book that I should mention, and they aren't even my inventions, but they're really wonderful. One of them is Jim Collins' BHAG, the Big Hairy Audacious Goal. If you can help a client articulate their BHAG, it becomes a North Star for the rest of this work. It's a really great thing to do. And the second thing is purpose, having companies outline what their actual purpose in the world is. Since the millennials have come into power, if you will, in the business world, they've taught us baby boomers that there's more to a company than shareholder value. It's stakeholder value, and stakeholder value means a lot more than return on investment, right? It's about making your people happy so they stay longer. It's about giving back to the world. It's about running a sustainable company. It's about emotional gratification. There's a whole lot of other things that go into stakeholder value. And my generation was like, well, if you can make your stock price go up, that's all you care about. But it's different now. So those are the two things I would add. And I will add into the new book when I do the update. I'm going to do the first chapter is going to be an update on the book.
In Get to AHA, you highlight that missionary companies seek to change behavior on a fundamental level. As a communicator myself, I'm always wondering and definitely wanted to ask you, having worked with a cult of personality missionary like Steve Jobs, working on the next big thing at Apple, what have you learned actually causes people to fundamentally change their behavior?
So what causes actual consumers, you mean, or actual business buyers to change their behavior? It has to be a promise of a better future, a promise of a better future that they think they can attain, right? So that's really what it is. And what I like to tell salespeople is that the best way you're going to increase the value of your company and sell more stuff is to sell a dream, right? Don't just sell a widget like this phone, but sell what this phone is going to do for you, and not just the benefit, but how it's going to increase the value of your life. And so that's really what I think is at the core of it.
What are some of the most memorable aha moments you've been a part of? You have several examples in the book. I think you did one for each genotype, I think.
Yep.
Yep. Are there others, anything that come to mind? Any stories you would tell?
Wow, let's see. There's of course a lot of these kinds. Oh yeah, I'll tell you one. So we did a project for a company called 8 Sleep. I don't know if your fans know who this company is, but they came to us a number of years ago, a startup company, well funded, but a startup company making a smart mattress, right? They were yet another mattress company, and at that point they were like a mattress company announcing itself every other week. And when they called and asked me if I could come in and help them, I kind of was like, oh God, not another mattress company. I mean, how do you position a mattress, really? But I ended up meeting with them. I loved the founder. I loved the technology that they had. And we ended up coming up with an idea that we called sleep fitness. And so we created like a whole new part of the wellness community. And they loved the idea. They've been promoting it ever since. They're actually now in the sleep fitness business, right? And how do they do that? Through their smart mattress. So that was a huge aha, I think, for them, for us, and for the market. So that was probably one that I feel very, very proud of.
You started your career out as a writer in Chicago. Since then, you've owned multiple companies. You've helped major brands with their go-to-market strategies. I've got some here on a list. I mean, Nokia, Oracle, Motorola, Google, BlackBerry. The list goes on and on. I mean, the brands are notable. We all have heard of Apple and Next and Pixar. So, do you still consider yourself primarily a writer? How do you view yourself?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. And yes, I do. I love language. I love words. I love how words move people to action. And when you can craft words in such a way that it moves people to action, to me, that's the most gratifying thing ever. I'll tell you a moment that I really kind of came to life for me is when we did the Macintosh launch. But back in 1983, we prepared for this thing. I wrote all the messaging for it, all of the little memes and the lines and everything. And then we presented it at the shareholder meeting in 1983. And then I was driving home from that meeting and I was listening to the radio, and every station that I turned to was covering the Macintosh launch because that's what we had arranged. And they were all repeating back to me all the messages that I had written. They were saying exactly what I had written. And it was a moment like, oh my God, they're using my words and those words are meaning something to the way that they're communicating with their audiences. So it really kind of cemented this idea that words drive people to action.
Yeah. You must have felt like a rock star hearing your songs come back to you.
It was a very, very weird moment, I have to say. It never happened to me before.
Yeah. And to that point, I wondered, how do you go about choosing just the right words? I'm thinking about the tagline, think different, or those taglines like that. How do you choose just the right word?
Yeah. So I think it's a combination of a lot of factors. The first factor is, how is the company positioning itself? So that's why I personally believe that positioning is the epicenter of great marketing, and great marketing is the epicenter of great business. So if you know what the position is, you kind of know the realm in which your language should be chosen, right? And then you want the words to be sticky, right? You want them to be memorable. You can't use 100 words when 2 words will do. So you're constantly trying to shave it off, and get it down to the stickiest, most memorable little phrase, and have it resonate. The third point is to have it resonate with the people you want it to resonate with. So think different was brilliant. I did not write that, but think different is brilliant, because what happened with Apple when that campaign came out is Steve had just come back to Apple after being fired. He learned a ton about growing up and about running a business and about building a product in the intervening time since he got fired from Apple. And when he came back, he also discovered something else that people might not realize, but he discovered who the Macintosh tribe actually was. And the Macintosh tribe, yes, the pirates, right? Pirates, but people who didn't want to do the status quo every day, right? People who wanted to color outside the lines, people who wanted to use something beautiful just for the sake of it being beautiful, right? And simple. Anyway, he discovered that this tribe is a little bit of a rebellious group of people, right? Functionally rebellious, I'll call it. And once he identified this tribe, then he started speaking actively to the tribe. And that's where Think Different came into play. Because if you say think different to someone, you're saying something very meaningfully, but it's outside the lines, right? Because it's not grammatically correct. So he's colored outside the lines just enough so you feel attached to that phrase, but not so much that you're like, what the heck is he trying to say? It was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And I love the ad copy too that Shia Day wrote around that ad campaign. Here's to the crazy ones. It was just a beautiful, beautiful piece of writing.
Do you find that it's more difficult to capture the attention of people today than it was in the past? How do you get the attention in today's world?
Yeah, boy, it is very difficult today. I talk about this in my book about the marketing rule of 7, which was actually came from a study that was done in the 20s around marketing movies. And basically what they discovered in the 20s, and if you remember in the 20s, the amount of messages a person saw in a day probably numbered in the teens, right? Today it's in the thousands, right? But back then it was in the teens, and they discovered that it took a potential customer for that movie to see a message 7 times before it even registered in their brain that it was happening. Well, that was in the 20s. Today, when we have thousands and thousands and thousands of messages coming at us all over the place, it's probably more like 700. So, the marketing rule of 700, where you've got to be consistent and frequent. And that's the way that you get to make something sticky today. You have to be consistent. But the problem with that is that humans aren't consistent, and we get very bored with our own messages, two lines into it, right? We repeat think different 5 times and we're like, oh, everybody's heard it. It's so boring, but the trick is, don't let your human condition of being bored by your own messaging prevent you from continuously repeating the same thing over and over and over again, because that's the only way to make it sticky. That's the only way to get attention. I mean, there are many other tactics, other techniques to get attention today. Building a tribe is really important. You must have your own community today. You have to communicate with them frequently. You have to be authentic. You have to be proactive. There's all those techniques, but basically, once you have all those techniques kind of mastered, it's all about consistency and frequency of messaging.
You got to keep playing that hit song for them.
Got to keep playing the hit song. It's like, right, if the Beatles song, Let It Be, only played once, like no one would remember it.
And as a PR expert, what are the most important things that a marketer can do to help a company get the attention of the press? You've been amazingly successful in this area, and I'm just wondering, can you give us some of your secrets?
It's funny. I actually have always had this philosophy about getting press attention, and it has nothing to do with really relationships with the press or taking them out for drinks or any of that stuff. It has to do with creating a story that they want to write about, which goes back to positioning. Like if you create a company you create a position for a company like Sleep Fitness, and you present that idea to the press are interested in that. It's like, sleep fitness, wow, I've never heard of that. What is sleep fitness? And all of a sudden you've sparked their interest, and then they want to write about it. So to me, it's about creating a great story that is centered on a very interesting position that people want to talk about.
Yeah, I think I watched an interview you did with Carnegie Mellon, and you talked about Steve had brought you into his house. It was after he was fired from Apple. He was starting Next. It was fresh and new. He had press all outside of his home. He was going to go out there and blast the CEO of Apple for what they had done, and then try to talk about what he was about to do with Next. And you talked him out of it.
Right.
I'm wondering, and it seems to me that story, you had said on this interview that you went out to the press and basically told them the truth.
Yes, right. Yeah, that's fundamental to my philosophy with the press, is you have to be completely honest. And I appealed to their humanity. It's like, you guys all know Steve Jobs. You know that he just got fired from Apple. It's only been a few days. He's still recovering from that. He's still trying to figure out what he's going to do in the future. And he has nothing to announce today. There's nothing for him to say that would benefit him or his new company in any way. So I hope you understand that. And believe me, when there is something to talk about, you will be the first people we call. So they understood. I mean, they mumbled and grumbled, and but we didn't have any riots or anything like that. They were great about it, actually.
Yeah, and you protected Steve in the process.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that was great.
That was actually a defining moment in my life, I have to say. It was probably, I've always been relatively decent at, quote, speaking truth to power, but in that particular situation, I feel like I averted some real issues, and it really defined me for many years to come. It's like, if you think something isn't going to work, you gotta stand up and speak out.
Well, I knew this interview was coming, so I asked some of those in my LinkedIn community to submit their questions, and here's what some of them wanted to know. Gerald Woodgate asked, in your career, which marketing rules did you break and get the best results from?
Well, I would say that I tried to create my own marketing rules most of the time. And I try to always put myself in the shoes of the customer that is buying whatever product it is, whether it's a Macintosh or whether it's a car or whether it's a B2B software product. It's like, if I am the buyer, what do I want to hear? What do I care about? So that's probably the biggest thing I did. And also realizing that when people buy stuff, they don't, especially in the B2B world, people often think that B2B buyers are like robots or something, like they're not human beings. And they are human beings, and they have emotions, and they want to connect with your brand emotionally, even though they're buying an enterprise software CRM product or whatever they're buying, right? So you have to understand what that emotion is before you can possibly hope to sell to it. So I really focus on the notion that I call it B2P, business to people. I don't really believe in B2C or B2B. I call it B2P, and you're really dealing with another human being on the other side of it. So that's sort of a little bit outside the lines of typical marketing strategy. You know, they say B2B marketing is this, B2C marketing is that, and no, it's all B2P.
Another individual, Stacy Danheiser, asked, many important initiatives, including positioning, fail due to lack of buy-in. What are your recommendations to get everyone aligned internally?
Well, she is so right about that. And I'll tell you, that is probably the hardest thing. And the way that I do that today is that methodology that's in my book. It requires that the entire senior leadership team participate in it. Everybody has to be a part of it. Everybody has to have their fingerprint on it. Everybody must participate. And if they don't, it won't work. And so I insist whenever I do work with a client that the whole leadership team is part of that exercise. And that creates alignment, because it's like going through a battle together. It's like taking your team into a very serious, situation where you're all in it together. And that's the environment we try to create. So what I do during our workshops is try to create an environment for our clients in which the aha can come out. I don't do the aha for our clients, I do it with them. And so that creates alignment, because they're all in it together and they all have their fingerprints on it.
Your book, first of all, talks about the 6 C's of positioning, core, category, community, competition, context, criteria, and you described the core as, that there's 3 types of companies: a mother, mechanic, and a missionary. And within those, there are 2 genotypes, which are really go-to-market approaches for each of those. I wanted to ask you, what is your core DNA? What would you like to essentially be known for?
That I would, just like everyone, I'd like to be a missionary, but I think I'm a mother. All of our clients want to be missionaries. But a funny thing happened to me right after I published the book. Some young woman who was introduced to me by somebody I knew really well, and she'd asked me if you would give this woman some career advice. So I took this woman to lunch. She was probably 23. And she said, I read your book, and here's what I've decided about how it's going to change my life. I am a mother, and I am working for a company that's a mechanic, and I can't do it anymore. We're not aligned. And so she said, I'm going to use your book to help me decide what kind of company I want to work for, so that it matches my own DNA, which I thought was brilliant.
Are there topics or innovations right now that you're excited about that you would share with us?
Yeah, so I am super excited about the metaverse. And I don't mean Facebook, by the way. I mean the actual metaverse, like the world that is going to take us from physicality to a hybrid of physicality and virtual interactions. I think the potential there is off the charts, and we're going to experience life in a much richer way. Now, just like all technology, it's going to bring some bad with it, just like every technology does. But for the most part, I think it's going to open up the world for much more diversity, equity, and inclusion, for third world countries to participate just like a first world country. I just think the opportunity is going to be bringing people closer together. I think it's going to be amazing.
Thank you for your time today. I really appreciate getting to sit with you and ask these questions. You've been a literary mentor of mine, and like I've said, your framework has just been eye-opening for so many, and just helpful to me in my career. So thank you, Andy.
Thank you, Aaron, and thank you so much for having me as a guest on your show. I appreciate it.